Welcome to Mishnah Salem Masechet Sanhedrin Perek Zayin Mishnah Dalet. Over here in this Mishnah, it's a relatively short Mishnah. Harambam has a very extensive Pirush over here, and we'll explain the Mishnah. We'll give a little bit of the Pirush that fits the Mishnah, and then we'll focus on his the laws, the tangent that he goes on to afterwards. So, firstly, we're going to continue these two people who get stoned. So we mentioned all the four punishments, capital punishments of Bedin. We mentioned stoning, Sikila was one of them. Now we're going to count and list all the people that get Sikila. Haba'alaim, if someone sleeps with his mother. Ve'al eshet av, right? Or his dad's wife, right? So it could be his stepmom. Ve'ala kala, daughter-in-law. Ve'abala zachur, if a male sleeps with another male. Ve'ala behema, sleeping with an animal. Ve'isha meviata behema, or a woman who brings the animal upon herself. Right? So all these, everyone is hayav sikila. And just point out, where did we learn this from? So firstly, anytime the Torah says demehem bam, right, uses that language, that's asur sikila, that's hayav sikila. Now we learn someone who sleeps with an animal, right? We learn in the front over there. The pasuk says mot yumat vete behemat taharogu. And similarly, it says by mesit, right, someone who convinces another individual to worship avodah zarah. It also says over there ki harog tahargenu, right? So the same way the mesit, right, the avodah zarah, someone do avodah zarah gets sekila. So to an animal, so to the animal, and the way the animal, right, the same way the animal gets sekila, so to the person who sleeps with an animal. So to someone who sleeps with another male is sekila. That's called nidbat zachur. And then also a woman who brings an animal upon herself, that's considered nidbat behema. Right, and everything's called a shochevim behema. Also, they get sekila. Now, a woman who sleeps with an animal, same idea. Whether it's kedarka, she brings it on herself kedarka, or shelo kedarka. Right, either one. Right, Rambam will explain it. We'll explain later, but it's either from the front or from the back. Either way. And similarly, if a male, right, comes in an animal kedarka or shelo kedarka, they're all going to be hayav sekila. Now the Mishnah continues. Hamgadef, someone who curses God, or someone gives from his zera, from his children to the molech, right? Also a form of avodah zarah. Again, all these different types of worshipping avodah zarah. Shabbat, someone who violates, who desecrates the Shabbat, curses his mom and dad. Someone sleeps with an engaged woman, right? She's engaged to someone and you go ahead and sleep with that, that person will be hayav sekila. Hamesit, if someone convinces another individual to worship avodah zarah, mediach, or if he convinces a population, a community to worship avodah zarah, chashev, someone who does kishuf, right, witchcraft, uben surer moreh, right, the wayward son. Okay, that's the list. Now the Mishnah continues and explains if someone sleeps with his mom, chayav alea mishum ha'im u'mishum eshet av. He's chayav twice, one for sleeping with his mother and one for sleeping with his dad's wife. Rabbi Yehuda omer eno chayav ela mishum ha'im bilvad. Rabbi Yehuda argues and says he's only chayav for one, for only sleeping with his mom alone. Halacha is not like Rabbi Yehuda. Abal eshet av. By the way, if a person did it by mistake, it would be chayav tu hata'ot ukon chachamim. Right? There's different ramifications. Abal eshet av. Someone sleeps with his father's wife. Chayav da mishum eshet av u'mishum eshet ish. Right, also because his dad's wife, and another similarly because she is a married woman. Whether it's during her father's life, during his dad's lifetime, or after his dad's life, after he passed away. Whether this person, his father's wife, it's either engaged or fully married. Either one is going to be chayav skila. If someone sleeps with his daughter-in-law, chayav mishum kalato, mishum eshet ish. Someone is again, he's chayav mishum his daughter-in-law and also mishum eshet ish. Ben chayav beno, ben achar mitat beno, whether in the time of his son's life or after his son passed away. Ben min anusin, ben min nisuin, whether his son only was engaged to that woman or if he was married. Habala zachur, if someone sleeps with another male, behema, or with another animal. Or if a woman who brings an animal upon herself. If the man sinned, what did the animal do wrong? Why are we saying that we have to stone the animal too? Right? Because man fell, right, and sinned through her. Right? Therefore, the pasuk said tisakel. Right? The man fell to this animal, so also to the animal gets punished. So the animal is not passing through the shuk, passing through the marketplace. People are going to say, this is the animal that so and so got sekila on because of this animal. Okay, that's the end of Harambam over here with this Pirush Mishnah and with this commentary on this Mishnah. But now Rambam goes on to explain a little more. And I'm going to read Hanambam over here. I'll give really the gist of it. I'll go through what he's saying. It's lengthy, but he says, I have to explain ikarim rabbi, many different points, right? Me'od minyaneh arayot, right? From laws of arayot, right? When it comes to incest, the laws involved in incest, Hanambam is going to go through many of them over here. And he says, even though there are really spread out in many places in the Mishnah, I said I would gather them in one place and explain them, and here it is. I'm going to explain them over here. So firstly, anytime where it says a man, right? It's when he's 13 years old in one day, and he has two sarot, right? He has two pubic hairs. He's considered a boger. He's considered an adult according to Torah. And similarly, a girl who's 12 years old in one day, who also has two hairs, is considered also a gedolah. Anything less than this, or if they don't have two pubic hairs, they're considered a katan and ketana. Now, what's the ramification of that? He's not hayav, he or she is not hayav in honor any punishment. He won't get malkut. He doesn't get death, right? If they're not a gadol or gadolah. Now, once we say this, Rambam says, I'm going to say that when we speak about arayot, when I talk about any type of incestual relations, intercourse, it's whether it's bi'ah kedarka or bi'ah shelo kedarka, right? Whether it's normal way or it's abnormal way. Bi'ah kedarka is from the front. Bi'ah shelo kedarka is from the back. Now, a little bit more graphic, but there's no difference whether it comes to me'areh or gomer, right? Me'areh kedarka or shelo kedarka. And me'areh in a zachur or me'areh in a behema. What's me'areh? Me'areh is when the man puts the entire atara, right? The entire top, the crown. That's considered me'areh, right? And that's considered for all intents and purposes intercourse. And gomer literally means finishing, but finishing is when the entire ever goes in. But if only, right, that's considered gomer. Now, if it's only a portion, the tip of the atara, right, that's not considered. What's that considered? That's considered ba derech evarim, right? Which is, it's not going to be hayav sekila or karet or something like this, right? So there's three levels. There's ba derech evarim, right? It's just literally the tip of the tip. Then you have me'areh, which is the whole crown, and then the gomer is when it's translated as finished, but it's really the entire ever went inside. Now, Harambam points out the punishment has nothing to do with whether any sperm came out or not, right? The moment the ever, the rosh ever, right, the crown went in, that's when all everything we mentioned over here, a person's gonna be hayav sekila, taret, all those laws, that's when it's going to apply. Now, there's also no difference in arayot whether the man is on top, the woman's on the bottom, the man's on the bottom, the woman's on top, right? Which we call mishkav afuch. There's no difference. Additionally, all the punishments that we mentioned, right, have to do with the hachnasa of the atara. Now, if a person Baal, he slept with some type of adva, intercourse with an adva, someone who's forbidden to him, and he did so without having an erection, he's not hayav the onesh, even if he ejaculated. Right? That's what actually that's the psak in the Talmud. That's the psak in the Gemara. They actually debated this. But Chachamim call this mishamesh met, right? He was mishamesh with a ever that's met, and he would not be hayav, right? Obviously, it's asur, but there's no right. You want to get the punishment. You want to get the sikila for this. Um, Now, if someone slept with an ereva, with a if someone was forbidden to him after she died, again, you're not going to be hayav an onesh. Again, it's asur, right? According to everyone, you're not going to be hayav an onesh. This is called maaseh hordus, right? The actual maaseh of Herod, right? Herod was actually appointed to have done this, right? To have slept with someone after she died, slept with his wife after she died. Now, someone bad derech avarim was just when the tip of the tip was entered in, right? With someone who's forbidden with, right? One of the arayot, or he kissed one of the arayot, hugged, touched the inappropriate place, right? With hana'ah, right? With pleasure, with enjoyment. Um, with everyone, any ever of his body, like some people would do with the yad and regel. This is what chamim call mina'afim beyad uberegel, right? The mina'ef with their hands and their feet. If someone with, also, right? It's asur, but there's no penalty over here. Also, Harambam says the sahek, to play, and to laughing, or even winking when in a with lust, it's asur, and you'll get malkut for someone who does so. Right? He's following two lo ta'aseh the Torah lo tikrevu legarot erva. You shouldn't come close to revealing erva, meaning you have to distance yourself from gilui erva, and also. The second one is don't do any abominations, right? And this is one of those types of chukot to'evot, right? But over here, there's no karet, right? Unless there is actual intercourse, right? As we mentioned, right? Alatzman shel to'evot karet. A person is not allowed to have any, smell any besamim of an erva, right? Or benefit even his, satiate his eye, right? Say, oh, look how beautiful, someone who's asur to him is. Just over here, they will not get malkut for something like this, even though it says lo tinaf lo tehene la'af, don't benefit from your nose, like don't smell, right? In a bad way, but you're not going to get malkut from a dirasha. Now, when it comes to a kala, right? A person's getting married to a bride, and you're at the wedding, right? Mutar lirot et hakala b'shat beracha. You can see the kala at the time of the beracha, even if she is an eshet ish, right? Again, the eshet ish qualifies her as an erva. But afterwards, right? You're not allowed to gaze at her, right? Unless he is not trying to benefit from her figure. Similarly, a woman who does not have a husband, right? She's not married. It's mutar for someone who's not an irva to that girl to lehenot, right? Enjoy from her figure by looking at her, and there's no isur ela miderech tzniut uprishut min hamutar kedei shelo yikasher beisur. There's no isur, but it's people will refrain in a tzanua way, right, from something that's allowed, so it doesn't lead to some type of isur, because the Hasidim would be moes in something like this, because they worry that it may lead to an eshadish, right? If it's gazing at a married woman, right? If a person is just used to gazing at other single girls, right? And they learned this from the Yov, right? Birit karati le'ainai umayt bonen al betula, right? Nevertheless, it's not an isur. Now Rambam says aval, right? If he's looking at her in order to know if she is pretty, so he can marry her, right? Or the opposite, right? She's ugly, so he's not going to marry her. Right? This is a chova. It's a must. The Torah encourages this. And any Ba'al Torah, even the Tsinuim, right? They do this, right? So it's important to look at, see the girl before you marry her. And Rambam continues, and when a person be latisha she'en la Ba'al, חייבים לקח מלכות. right? Sleeping with a woman who's not married, again, a single woman, Haya Malkut. Even though this person is not going to be Nifsel Kiuna, she's not considered a Zona, even so it's Asur, right? And you get Malkut for it. But Beilat Pinuya, Derech Evarin, right? A single woman, Derech Evarim, that we mentioned earlier, all those, he would get Malkut for an Edva, right? He would get Malkut for if she was an Edva, right? If it was a forbidden relation to him. But if she's just a single woman who's not forbidden to him, they won't be malkut because only the be'ilah, only the intercourse itself would get malkut, right? Similarly, you'll even get a malkut, right? You don't get a malkut for sleeping. You don't get a malkut for the we said over there, right? But you will get malkut for yichud penuya midrabanan, right? Midrabanan, it's asur to even have yichud with a single woman, right? So you'll get malkut for that midrabanan. Now, all the arayot is asur for a person to have yichud with, unless or even everyone mentioned over here, except for a zachur, right? A guy with a guy, right? There's no isur of yichud, and a behema. Why? Because lo nichshedu Yisrael mishkav zachur v'ala behema. Yisrael are not hashud, right? They're not suspected to have from mishkav zachur and behema. Even goy is who has even greater desires. Right, yeah. Any tzram tukfam mishneh ma'asim alad. Even in goy, they don't have their desires pushing them in this direction over here with these two things. Anytime a person has yichud with an erva from the arayot, that's asur, or a penuya, or a single that's not an erva, both of these, right, the man and the woman, get malkut, except if it's an eshet ish. Right? Except if she is a married woman, then we're not going to give them malkut. Why? Not because they didn't do something wrong. Like, obviously, there's something wrong, but we don't want to give them malkut for yehud, so we don't be motzilaz on their children that they're mamzerim. Right? We don't want to spread rumors that the children are mamzerim. Now, it's mutar for a person to have yehud with his mom or his daughter. Right? Those are the only two that are allowed. All the other arayot and nekevot are it's asur to have yehud with them, as we mentioned Masechet Kedushin. When it comes to kissing, are you allowed to kiss relatives? So Harambam says kissing kirovot. It's even if you're not enjoying it, not doing it as a pleasure. Even a sister, right, or an aunt, granddaughters, right, or right, is ma'us me'od ve'asur. Harambam says. Right, interesting. Harambam says all this is asur, but yinachya malkut unless you have kavanah to have pleasure. Even one of Chamim would be menashek his sister's older sister's hands, right, when he come out of the Beit Midrash, and then he stopped, right, because he says it's not something that I should be doing. Right, so saying Nazir, don't go near the vineyard. Go, take the long route, around it. Don't cut through. When it comes to arayot. Right? Who is a person allowed to kiss? A mom could kiss her son, a dad could kiss her daughter, kiss his daughter. That's it. Right? And Rambam says up until he is 12 years old, mom could kiss the son. Right? And afterwards it's asur, like Allah the ayot. And then similarly, a dad kisses his daughter up until she's 9 years old. And afterwards it's asur, like anyone else. You can't have a servant coming ahead and serving you, or taking care, feeding, washing your hands, whether she was 13 years old in one day, or she was 13 in one day, whether she even a slave woman, older, younger, if it's an enva, or even if it's not an enva. And this is what we said, kilal, right? Can't a woman at all, right? You're not allowed to use woman for any of these purposes. And what was the point? The person shouldn't come to hirhur, right? Just to inappropriate thoughts, right? But over here, there's no malkuf for something like this. Chamim also said we're very careful about hirhur. They wanted to distance us from it. Also, to be makshat da'at, the person shouldn't, just on his own, cause himself to have an erection. Right? Also, having shikvat zera come out just inappropriately. All these are asur, but there's no malkut for any of these, but they're devar meguneh. Um, right? Yeah. Also, two women who are sleeping together, right? Again, it's not it's something that's very um, despicable. It's a maseni ta'av. There's no onish from the Torah, nor midrabanan. These women, these girls would not be considered a zonah, and they're not asurot to their husband. They're not asurot to a kohen. But Hamim call these what they call these women nashim hamesolelot zo bazo. Right, it's from the language of maslul in Yeshayahu, right, which is a derech, a way. Even though there's no punishment, right? These are the to'avot of Mitzrayim, right? This is Matzeh Eretz Mitzrayim. מה היו עושים? איש נושא איש ואישה נושא איש, אישה נישאת לשני אנשים, right? All these different, again, abominable acts. A person is allowed to sleep with his wife, to come onto his wife, shelo kedarka, right? As we explained to Rosh v'derech evarim, right? However he wants. And so too, one of the Chachamim would actually do so with his wife, who wanted that. And the Torah said, V'amar la, and she said, Torah, the Torah allowed it. Now, one of the Chachamim wanted to say that it's a gnai, it's something you should refrain from. Even to flip, right, to have the girl on top, right, we were called mishkav hafuch, or kissing her in different places. And we saw an argument in the Talmud, and Chamim argued. Chamim omrim kol ma she'adam rotze la'asot be'ishto oseh. Anything a person wants to do with his wife, he's allowed. And the psak of the Talmud, the Gemara is posek like Chachamim. So even though umnam, right, so it's mutar, and Rambam says umnam, nevertheless, even though all this is mutar, Hasidim who are tzinuim, they would distance themselves from all these animalistic ways, and they would, look down upon them. Why? Because the purpose of intercourse is for the next generation, to build, to create the next generation, right? It's the existence of humanity, and not just for pleasure. But the pleasure was there in order to, create, arouse and, create that desire. What's the proof of this? Rambam says that once a person, ejaculates, that's it. He's all the natural desires subside, right? So we see that it was really for the continuation of humanity, right? So in order to have children. Therefore, the Hasidim always focused on the tachlit, on the purpose, right? And Chamim would always praise those people who did so, and we call him Mekadesh Atzmo B'Shat Tashmish, right? He sanctifies himself in the time of Tashmish, meaning this is what he's focused on. He's not focused on the pleasure. He's focused on the bringing banim, tihurim, having rishut, midot tovot. That's what the focus is on. Chamim praised, right? Even they praised one of the Chachamim who had a wife who wasn't she had physical flaws, and he didn't realize he wasn't even he didn't even pay attention to it, and Chamim praised him, right? Because that's what's something that you see what he was doing for the right reason. Now this doesn't contradict what we said before. When Chamim say, anything a person wants to do with what his wife is allowed to do, right? Because what's allowed and not allowed is different than what's the better thing to do, right? We're keeping a more tsanua life, distancing yourself with more pity shoot, right? You see all of these other values and qualities. Rabbeinu Abraham ben Rambam speaks about a lot of these. So you see that there's a difference between just what's mutar and asur and what's a better way of life for a person to focus on. Chamim also osir that a person should sleep with his wife the or haner, right? It shouldn't be with the light, right? And the light should not be on the room. There's no punishment for this, right? But it should be in a dark room when a person's having intercourse with his wife. A person shouldn't sleep with his wife in the shvakim or in the fields in the pardesim, right? Or any place where there's no home where people are living, right? It should be done inside in a room. And if a person does, he's hayav makat mardut, something like this. Hachamim look down upon tashmish during the daytime, right? Sleeping during the day, or too much, right? Excessive intercourse, or too many wives, or marrying the daughter of an Amaretz, or taking him as a son-in-law, marrying someone also who is less than 12 years old. Again, all these things are frowned upon. Or marrying someone who's young, right, to someone to a guy who's much older, or zekenah bahur, or vice versa, right? She's really old, he's very young, right? All these causes sanu b'Torah. All these are really despised and frowned upon from the Torah. And Hanabam says, "V'ashuv, I'm going to come and now return back to focus on the ikarim that we were focused on. If an older, right, a gadol, right, was mizaneh with a young girl, if she was 13 days and 13 years in a day, he, right, that's it, she is old enough in order to force him to be hayav and onesh. He would get a punishment. Right? We can only punish him if she is a gedola. Vim zanta isha gedola, if she was older and she slept with a younger guy. If he was 9 years old in a day, right? Then she would be mithayevet onesh. She would get a punished, right? Because then he's considered old enough in order to have intercourse with her, and she would get the punishment, right? We won't punish him because he's not considered a gadol yet, right? But she would get punished. And for a guy who slept with another zachur, right? This guy slept with another guy. If he were right, if he was 9 years old in a day, right? A guy who was older, right? He's already he's gadol, right? He's bar mitzvah already, and he brought upon himself a 9 year another kid who was 9 years old in a day. That guy would be hayav, right? He'd be hayav sekida. The 9-year-old boy would not get, because would not get sekida because he's not a gadol yet. Similarly, a woman who brings upon herself an animal, right? If she was 13 years in a day, right, then the behemah, the animal will get killed. She doesn't get killed unless she is, right, a gedolah. If she was less than that, right, then the animal also would not get killed. Similarly, if a person slept with an animal or had an animal brought upon him, had an animal brought upon her, right? If he was 9 years old in a day, right, then the animal will get killed. And he's not hayamita unless he's older. We don't care about the age of the animal, right? Well, we care about the ages of the man, the woman, that she's not a kitana, right? As long as she's a gdolah, right? Then they will get punished. Similarly, anyone who is less than 9 years old in a day, okay, this is actually important. Anyone's less than 9 years old in a day, bi'ato ena bi'ah. Right? His bi'ah is considered nothing, and as if he didn't do anything. Leinyana onesh, he doesn't get in order to for any punishment. Meaning, even the girl who slept with him will not get punished. Right? Of course, it's asur. Whether he's boel or nival, right? He's one who's right, and there's no punishment. Similarly, anyone pehutami bat shalosh shanim v'yom echad. If the girl is less than 3 years old in a day, the bi'ah is not considered bi'ah, right? There's no right. It's not considered intercourse, whether it's a man or a behemah. And you should know that a woman, right? If a woman brought an animal upon herself, she's not forbidden back to her husband, even if he was a kohen. We explained, right? We explained that the bet din would punish the older guy, and the woman. How so? With edim, right? You need, in order to execute punishment, you need to have edim and you need to have hatra'ah, a warning, like everything we mentioned. If the bedin did not know and did not punish them, or we couldn't clarify the edut, their avon is written in the Torah, and really it's a Kabbalah that Hashem will extract punishment. But our Kabbalah is that Hashem does not ma'anish, doesn't give karet unless he is older than 20 years old, whether it's for a man or a woman, right? So our Kabbalah, our tradition is there is no let's say God doesn't punish for the isur of karet until the guy or the girl is over 20 years old. Also, minatzorach sheteda, when it comes to an eshet ish who eno gadol, ki eshet ha'ish she'eno gadol ena eshet ish. Right? If he in eshet ish is not a gadol, he's not considered in ena eshet ish. She's not considered eshet ish. V'chein eshet charesh shveshoteh. Right? If a woman is married to a someone who's deaf mute or someone who's an imbecile, right? And he married her when he was a Harish, right? It's not like he married her when he was totally fine and then he became deaf mute. No, he was always a Harish or Shoteh, that's also that the person is not considered an Eshedish. Right? Because their marriage was never really consummated. But a kitana, the hareshet, right? Younger kitana, the hareshet, eshet hagadol, shisi avia, or an older one, or someone who's really older, but the dad married her off when she was younger. She's considered an eshet ish. Hareshet, again, a deaf mute woman, shisi atzma. She married off herself. Right? She's not considered an eshedish, right? Because again, she never really consummated her marriage. Now Harabah really ending off over here. If imzana adam with a isha ve'ima, person slept with a woman and her mom, right, or two sisters, right, of the of forbidden relations, like we mentioned over here in our Mishnah, right? It's considered as if he slept with two foreign girls, right? As if there's no relation between them. In what sense? Meaning the only time we say that a person slept, a person gets the punishment of sleeping with two sisters if one of them is his wife. But two regular random sisters, it's not like it's not the isur of sleeping with sisters, even to the point where he's allowed to marry one of them afterwards, based on the conditions that we set forth in Masechet Yevamot. If a person slept with one of his wife's relatives, his wife's mom, his wife's sister, daughter, similar, or similar. Lo ne'esra alav ishto, right? He's still allowed to stay married to his wife, even though he's chayav karet. He's chayav karet and or death, right? Still, he could stay married to his wife. But the opposite, if he isha shezanat birtzona, she slept around willingly. Ne'esra bazeh al be'ala, and she's now forbidden to go back to her husband, even if it was a goy. If she was raped, then she's allowed to go back to her husband, unless her husband is a Kohen, then she's not allowed to go back to her husband, a Kohen. And Rambam closes, Zeu mashra'iti lazkirokan misitre arayot, from the laws, the hidden laws of the arayot, ve'adome lahen mikilkila biot, ve'asanu bahen, ve'isur, ve'ma'us, ve'ahuv, what's despised, what's praised, ve'en halacha k'Rabbi Yehuda, halacha is not like Rabbi Yehuda. Okay, that ends off our Mishnah.